So I got a job offer earlier this year to work at this really innovative company where my starting salary would have been $75,000 to $85,000 a year. And then I would have got somewhere between $50,000 and $75,000 in stock options. And also, I quote, the salary and options package would rapidly increase with very strong performance. Now, I got that job in a totally non-traditional way. And if you're under 25, then this video is for you because I'm going to break down exactly how I was able to do that and how you can too. And I'll note this was also an industry in which I had no prior experience. So in the next few minutes, I'm not just going to share the story of how exactly I got that job and how you can replicate it, but at the end, I'm also going to share 3 hacks that will really just add gas to that fire of you getting these crazy positions and really good compensation as a young person. So here's the story. I was listening to a podcast where this business owner and entrepreneur was being interviewed about his company. And it was this really just fascinating, deep tech business. That is something I was super interested in, even though I didn't have prior experience in the industry. So I went and I searched for his name on LinkedIn, and then I just sent him a message. And it was not a sales pitch. It was not an I want a job message. It was basically just, hey, I think what you're doing is great and I just want to connect, and let me know if I can help you out at any point. He responded a few days later and said, hey, just let's let's hop on a Zoom. And I hadn't asked for that, and in retrospect, he actually thought that I was asking for a job, even though I was really just saying, hey, what, let's connect. So we had this 30-minute conversation over Zoom. By the end of it, he was like, hey, do you want a job? Now, I was kind of taken aback there because I was like, hey, I didn't even think a job was on the table, but I'll think about it. And so I did think about it, and ultimately I had a few other conversations where I met not just him, but his co-founder and then their lead investor as well. And throughout that entire time, my pitch was basically, here's a bunch of ideas I have for the company. I think a lot of great things can happen here, and I think you aren't doing a lot of those things. And so after those few conversations that took place over probably 3 or so weeks, I got this email with the $140,000 initial compensation package, which would also have increased if I had joined the company. And they knew that I was 18. They knew I had no prior experience. I think in retrospect, what really sold them was the unique background that I had, combined with, and this is really the critical part, the energy, the ideas, and kind of the novelty of what I was presenting to them. Now, I ended up not taking the job because a company that I co-founded was really starting to take off during that month. But the fact that I did get the offer and it was at a just dream company that if I was going to work for anyone, I'd want to work for them with really cool people and a great starting salary is just really something. And in retrospect, here are the key things that made it happen, which I've also vetted across other similar experiences and also just through my businesses as well. But before I tell you exactly how I made it happen, I want to tell you about Odoo. They are the sponsor of today's video. Odoo is a suite of integrated business apps for So you must hear all the time and you must get ads and watch videos about different business softwares that can help you, right? Like a CRM over here, an accounting tool over there, inventory management there, sending invoices, payments, creating a website, all these different apps. Now what Odoo does, and they are the #1 business software in the world with over 15 million users, is take all those different apps and pull them into one platform. So as a business owner, or if you want to start a business, they're super helpful with just, again, saving time, saving you money, and generally making you more efficient and just really making you more money as a business owner. Also, compared to all those individual softwares, they are much cheaper. So you can click the link in the bio to book a demo or just learn more about Odoo and how they can help you. And with that said, it's back to the video. Okay, so first off, regarding how I got that kind of job offer, I want to say that the traditional hiring path today is just the worst, and you should absolutely avoid this at all costs. And what I mean by that standard process is just sending your resume or CV to Indeed or LinkedIn, or just applying to jobs in those very traditional manners. And the very simple reason as to why you shouldn't do that is because you have insane amounts of competition and you have almost no ways to stand out. For example, a few days ago, actually, for this YouTube channel, I put out a job offer on LinkedIn that was for a short form video editor. I got 650 applicants to that job post in the span of 36 hours, right? That's 650 people who wanted that job in less than 36 hours and applied for it. And I've had very similar experiences across my other companies with job posts on Indeed and LinkedIn. And also when I've applied to the few companies that I have across those platforms, you most often just get some kind of default response where maybe they'll go for an interview, but oftentimes they just filter you out based on keywords. And for example, in the job that I detailed in this video, I 1000% would not have gotten that if I was just one out of 700 applicants. There also are just really good alternatives to this traditional path, which I'm just going to explain shortly. So instead, the vastly superior alternative to this traditional job application path is just through relationships. And I've said this before and I'll say it again, all of business really is just relationships and people who know each other working together and building relationships and so on. And it should absolutely be the same with you trying to find a job. So for example, you just going to LinkedIn and searching for interesting people at roles you want or at companies you want to work for, or going to, if you're say in college, the alumni network where you can reach out to people that are willing to mentor you or introduce you to, open positions or people who are hiring at their firms. Just reaching out to those people is the first step in this process of getting jobs and compensation that really you shouldn't or are very unusual to get as a young. Now, this is somewhat company specific, right? Like if you want to crack Google as a company, that's much harder than say startups. And also if you work in medicine or say hardcore finance, it is a lot harder to get those jobs. But apart from those edge cases, if you do want to make really good money and just work at your kind of dream job when you're young, again, just forego the entirety of the standard job application path and just focus on building relationships with interesting people through a combination of cold outreach, so just messaging them, emailing them, and so on, and then warm outreach, so just people that you already know, introducing you to people they know. And there was another job offer we put out on LinkedIn probably a year or so ago, where I think all of the 50 or 60 respondents to the job application that we interviewed had college degrees, right? Some of them had college degrees from top 20 schools. Like the degree of competition there and just the difficulty in interviewing and just figuring out who to hire from that many people that are all really, really qualified is nearly impossible. You're just frankly never going to get a really good job when you're young, when you don't have experience, when you're applying through all these, again, just traditional routes. Now, if you don't have someone's information and you do want to cold call them or send them an email, then you can go through databases like, say, RocketReach or other kind of lead platforms to get that information if you are willing to spend a little bit of money to do this. Otherwise, just working through LinkedIn, social platforms, and so on is just really the way to go. Okay, so the first key to getting these really good jobs is to build relationships first and to not apply to jobs through the traditional paths. Now, the second key is to offer free value. So don't approach this as a job when you're talking to these people or meeting them or as a sales pitch, but rather here's what I want to do for you and here's the vision I have and the ideas I have and all the energy that I want to put toward your idea, your company, and so on. Again, when I reached out to the founder of this company, I wasn't asking for a job. At no point was I hard pitching him, right, on getting a job. What I did do is brainstorm with him, is come up with ideas for him, get him excited about what I think in the direction that I think the niche I was focusing on, so the marketing, the sales, the branding of his company could go. When you're directly talking to people in a format that doesn't feel like an interview and you're talking about ideas and companies that you want to emulate and you're brainstorming together and you have cumulatively all this energy, that is how you get these crazy jobs that you never would have on LinkedIn or Indeed. So focus ultimately on the value that you're presenting, not the job itself, and then always have the most energy and creativeness in the room. That's the bottom line. Okay, that's step 2. Now here is the third element of this process, and that is do your research. And you just have to know what you're talking about, period, whether that's the person you're in the room with, the company at hand, or just the ideas that you're presenting. Right? One problem with standard interviews, if you go and interview 100 people for a job, is that none of them have actually done the research on you or the company. They just read some, brief description somewhere. If you are the singular person that knows everything there is to know about the company and the person, and you're approaching them with ideas that make sense for the company and are making connections to these other things that they haven't thought about, then they will create jobs for you. They will give you jobs that didn't exist before because they realize in a sense that you're solving problems they didn't know they had, or you're presenting radical solutions to problems that they absolutely know they had. So you don't have to have some crazy resume, just sell them on your ideas, your motivation, and your work ethic, and ultimately just on your personality. In that if someone likes you as a person, you are so much more likely to get hired versus the inverse. The question for them isn't really that much about experience. For the person that is potentially hiring you, the question is, will they follow through on their value prop? Or will they follow through on the ideas and the person that they are pitching themselves to be. And I mean pitching not by directly pitching, but just by the conversations that you're having. So in combination, build direct relationships, offer free value, and do your research. And now here are the 3 hacks to finish off this video to make sure that you do get that dream job. And I will ask that you just subscribe before I get into those if you do find this video helpful. So first, just volume and organization are your best friends. Again, I spoke of databases like Rocket Reach where you can get the contact information for people. There's also plenty of others like Uplead, Cognizant, and so on. But it's not just having the potential or the ability to reach people, it is following up with them and is contacting them in mass and then tracking the information that you have on them. For example, just make a list of 30 companies that you really want to work for. Then from that, find a list and get the information on, say, 100 key people in that company. Then reach out to 10 of them at a time, and then do your research and have, information written down on the company or the person. And you can take that structured approach and do the same thing with asking friends if they know anyone in a given industry that you want to work in, or going to a portal for your university and say reaching out to 100 or however many people that have said that, hey, they're willing to mentor you or give you a job. And that number 2 is put together a presentation or visualizer describing the ideas you have for the company you could potentially work at. That's exactly what I did for the story I described in this video. You can see that presentation right here. And there is a time and a place to do this, like probably not just off the bat. But what that does is show that you took the initiative, you actually have valid ideas, you can create things that visually look good, right, and that detail your ideas. And ultimately that you are willing to put effort into something when, again, you haven't directly pitched them for a job. Okay, and then number 3 is, again, it really just comes down to the relationship and people. So really, you should focus above getting the job on just meeting interesting and influential people. So then this 3rd hack, quote unquote, is in a very material sense, try and get jobs in which you also meet influential and interesting people. And that's because these caliber of people that have this status, this network, this money, whatever it may be, those are the people, and that is the point of this whole process that are going to get you into unusual positions, whether that's salary-wise, just influence or job role-wise as a young person. So if you can get any kind of job in which you're rubbing shoulders with all these really interesting and successful people, then maybe it's not that job, but they are the ones ultimately that are going to get you those really, really good positions when you're still very young. Now, all these hacks and this whole process may sound kind of self-evident in retrospect, but I look at most people around me that are my age and also just going off the numbers job application wise, where all that everyone does nowadays is still just apply through these very traditional portals or just sending their CVs or resumes to job application websites or just the website of a specific company. And if I can nail in one point, it's just that I strongly recommend that you avoid that whenever possible. And of course, that's dependent upon the industry you're working in. But there is just a 0% probability that you're going to stand out, that you're going to get anything that's unusually good in terms of your role, in terms of your compensation or salary. Ultimately, it is just playing a game in a much harder way than you otherwise have to, right? It's like trying to fight the maxed out boss on the final level instead of just going and meeting all these interesting people, developing relationships, and then just, going about it that way. That's the video, and I will see you in the next one.